Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about something that I saw coming through my social media feed, and I stopped and watched the reel, and it was really kind of funny because it was one of those cases where the person was speaking the truth in terms of biomechanics, but what they were saying is not what these bodybuilders do, or even what he was then kind of showing in his reel as bodybuilders do. You know, he kind of pointed out that, look, people talk about the need for full range of motion or hypertrophy, but you see all these pro bodybuilders doing partials. You know, and he tried to explain it as, hey, they're skipping the lockout. But the funny thing is, a lot of these pro bodybuilders you're seeing are skipping the bottom. They're not just skipping the lockouts of movements. And he went into a long diatribe that, again, is actually true. It is actually correct to say that, you know, the research does kind of show that most of the muscle growth happens at the bottom part of movements. So if a lot of these guys are getting enough workload, enough volume, and maybe they're skipping lockouts, but they're working the bottom, then, biomechanically, this still works. A lot of the evidence would suggest that this is capable of causing maximum hypertrophy, and they're just not wasting effort, with shortened positions of muscles, and they're sticking with lengthened positions. And again, this would be a true statement, except that that's not what these pro bodybuilders do. A lot of these pro bodybuilders work the middle. And again, that will come over to people saying, well, they're chasing continual tension, but continual tension has never been really found to be a factor in muscle growth, has it? It hasn't. I mean, it does give you a good pump, and maybe there is some data to suggest that there is some correlation with pump and being a sign of certain types of fatigue, which again can be a positive sign that we may have had a productive set. And I don't want to deny that there is some evidence to that, and it's not unreasonable. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, a lot of these guys are skipping the very range of motion he's talking about. And here's kind of what I would suggest is the thing there. A lot of pro bodybuilders, and I've seen this said for decades, even other certain coaches have kind of said, look, a lot of pro bodybuilders, between their genetics and the just ridiculous, copious amounts of stuff they put into their body, would probably still look like bodybuilders if all they did was some jumping jacks. They probably, and again, there's some truth to that, if they just did some intense conditioning work, some burpees and jumping jacks, that would probably be enough to stimulate really good muscle growth on the enormous amount of stuff a lot of them take, particularly given how genetically blessed some of these guys are for gaining muscle. On top of that, that maybe how they train, you'd be surprised, doesn't matter as much as you think it does. It might make the difference between first and second place, but it won't make the difference necessarily in them being there. And when you watch how bad some of them train, that does appear to be a degree of truth. Because usually what I have observed over the decades with those guys, usually the better they train, the less stuff they can get away with taking and still get just as good of results. And that actually will keep them in the game longer, obviously. Obviously, if you can take less stuff, your body's going to last a lot longer. So again, they have more time to achieve the results because they can do it longer. Better muscle maturity, more time to lay down lots of extra tissue protein. It makes sense, right? But again, a lot of them get around it just by taking stuff. And then they're still just training hard. As long as they're training hard, they're still getting a lot of volume and tension and pump. Okay? So that explanation would be true if that's how they train, but they don't. They oftentimes are just doing the middle. But I do like the idea that someone was willing to point that out and to say, well, it's not that full range of motion itself has been found to be enormously always important for maximizing muscle growth. It's that stretch position really appears to be the part of the equation that makes the full range of motion so beneficial, right? That contracted position isn't, not saying useless, because I do not want that to come across that way, because it's not true. It's just the least important, especially when compared to the bottom, those stretched positions, right? A bench press or a dumbbell press, that very bottom where that pec is stretched, That's where the money is. That tricep extension, where that tricep long head is put into that stretch when the elbow's completely bent. All right, that's your money. That curl when you're all the way at the elbow locked, particularly on certain movements, that's where the money is. How about squats, leg presses, lunges, that very bottom, where that knee is all the way bent and that quad is stretched. That's what I'm talking about. Those positions are where in the lab the muscle growth does seem to matter. Same thing with these laterals, that very bottom. That stretch at the bottom. It's really where the money is. Not saying the rest isn't important. It's just that that's the most important part when we start studying muscle growth. And it's not in every case, but in the majority of them, it does seem to be. There is kind of a sweet spot there. Making sure that you get that point will go a long way. It'll go a long way. But I just thought it was comical that he used that when the truth is bodybuilders, like pro bodybuilders, are notorious for not doing the stuff that they even preach themselves. You know, a lot of them do a lot of bodybuilding. They'll talk about, it's important to squeeze and contract and control, but then they cheat and swing and just do mid-reps, But here's the thing. At the end of the day, what are they still getting? They're still getting a lot of fatigue created in that muscle consistently. Okay? That's worth something. And we come over to that other point that's been raised many times by a lot of coaches and experts. With enough substances, and we mean, again, PEDs, when the doses start getting astronomically high, anything that works a muscle hard, in other words, as long as they're training hard, is going to grow the holy hell out of it. Okay? As long as they're actually putting in some real work, they tend to get pretty big real quick. The problem is that once you take that stuff out of the equation, different types of work do seem to matter, right? They have more importance as far as what is effective, irrespective of how hard you're actually going. There is some differences. Although, again, hard work does tend to go a long way, even when it's not optimal. Okay? Even when it's not done optimally, hard work can still get you pretty far. I think as most people have found over time. But that's really what's going on there. And I just thought it was funny the guy pointed that out, because you don't really see bodybuilders, the serious, the hardcore guys doing what he was describing always. Although we can make the case that they probably should. They probably should. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.